Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our press conference following the informal meeting of the European research ministers here in Tallinn today. We will start with opening statements by the Estonian Minister of Education and Research, Mailis and the European Commissioner for Research, Science and Innovation, Carlos Moedas. After that, we will have time for questions. And in case you require interpretation, there are headsets available next to the entrance. Ütlen seda ka eesti keeles, et kui keegi vajab tõlget, siis kõrvaklapid saab sealt ukse kõrvalt. Dear Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It was a full working day, and it was really wonderful to see how active our colleague research ministers and ministerial representatives were. And of course, I would like to thank personally dear friend Commissioner Carlos Moedas, because his interventions have been very inspiring for all of us and interesting and future-looking, forward-looking. During the Estonian presidency, we wanted and we want to look at initiatives and ways forward that unite us. And research clearly is one of the fields which has a great success story, how the different countries work together very closely, different researchers inspiring each other and having a very good atmosphere of work. Scientific cooperation, it is really a true success story of European integration. And however, thinking about the future of European research and innovation, there are different areas and rooms for improvement. Today we were looking at two topics. First, the topic of our morning session was the impact and the value of European research and innovation. And we discussed how to build a stronger case for the investing more in research and innovation, how to have the stronger case within the European Union through the stakeholders and, of course, inside the different national governments. And second, we discussed the European research and innovation partnerships, where we exchanged the views how to make and rationalize the landscape, how to make it more open, how to make it more transparent, how to have it the process of launching new partnership initiatives and how to be open for newcomers. That was one of the key discussion elements as well. In the morning session, we had excellent opening speeches and opening ideas by Mr. Pascal Lamy, who was the head of a working group, who concluded different ideas on an interim report, how we have carried scientific and research and innovation financial programs so far, what could be done better, because we all agree that it's Horizon 2020 is an excellent thing. We have a lot of achievements and we can celebrate in Europe, but there are proposals how to make the next one even better. And also we were listening Heikki Mannila, professor from the Academy of Finland, and Mr. Mannila also in Finland have made clear proposals how to have a bigger impact of research on the society, and he had shared his ideas with us this morning. How to contribute the research on health, on education, on society at large, and of course for stakeholders it's also important how every euro invested in research actually carries on further in economy and job creation. In the afternoon we had two other excellent interventions, speakers. Dr. Jana Koller, who was looking at the partnership landscape and looking at what kind of sensitive issues there are, how we could make the landscape more rational, more easy, and also draw some ideas how we go with that. And of course, the Professor Luc Soete, who is more in a theoretical point of view, but made at the end very practical conclusions, what we could do, because partnerships are already 25% of Horizon 2020 budget, and it is quite a big share of that, and how we could use it more open, more transparent way, and so that we would all be maybe a little bit even more happy than today. And we need to rationalize the system because all the countries around the table agree that the partnerships are good, but having tackled some of the issues, it is across the EU even better to boost our economies, to improve the societies at large, and of course the excellent research innovation is something what societies in large benefit. We will continue these discussions further in our working group levels in Estonian Presidency, and also we focus on 12th of October, already in early fall, on the discussion of European research excellence impact and value on society here in Tallinn, and on a conclusion, so we come back in Brussels later this year. Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister Mailis Reps. I want really first to publicly thank you for the organization that was perfect, the food that was perfect, and your amazing skills of moderating around the table, your comments and your suggestions. And I think that was really something that I wanted to acknowledge the presidency, but here, my dear friend Mailis. I think that just to add a couple of points, I think that on the first part of the discussion, we talked about why is it important to invest in research and innovation? What are the arguments? How can we convince the leaders, the prime ministers, the presidents of the European countries of the importance? And I think that our conclusion is that there's definitely technical arguments that are very strong. I mean, today we know that 2/3 of the growth in industrial countries come from innovation and science. And that's a point of data that is very important, because growth can only come from more investment in science and innovation. We know today by facts and numbers and economists that if you increase by 10% what you invest in research, science, and innovation, you will have an impact of more than 1% in your GDP. So imagine that Europe would go from 2% investment to 2.2. That will have an increase of 1.1 to 1.4 in the GDP of Europe. So 5 times the money you put will have an impact in the lives of people. But more complex and more difficult is that there's a political side of it. And the political side of it is that Mailis and I work in a field that is long-term. The decisions we take are for the long term. And the political cycles are short and getting shorter by the year. And so we have to really get the message much quicker to the people. And that's why the discussion of impact was so important, because you have to link the impact through missions that people understand on their everyday life. So if you talk about that we're going to invest in some kind of new material, people don't know what it is about. But if you tell people that Europe will find a cure for Alzheimer, people understand what it is about. And that's something that we really want to put forward in the next framework program. And then I think that it's about the people, and a lot of the discussions on impact came to the point that we have to invest more in people than in ideas. People are the ones that make the difference, and innovators are the ones that make the difference. And that's why we went forward with this idea around the table of a European Innovation Council that works from the people to the ideas and gets the best ideas and the best people. And the second point that I wanted to make is about our second part of the discussion that Mailis described here, which is about partnerships. And I think that partnerships have been extremely important for Europe, because you know, if you look at how much do we invest in research, science, and innovation, and how much the United States invests in research, science, and innovation, the big difference is on private investment, not on public investment. And that private investment is something that we have to leverage. We have to attract more private money. And the partnerships have been a great, really, piece of the puzzle to leverage that partnership money that comes from the private side. And at the same time, have been also a way of aligning our agenda at the European level with the national agendas, and to create long-term relationships for everybody in a world where you just go further away if you cooperate. So we looked at the positives, and then we said, what can we improve? How can we actually link this idea of partnerships in the future to the idea of these missions? How are these partnerships modeled in a way that people understand where we go? And so we will have to take courageous decisions. We have to think, who are the partnerships that we will need in the future? What are the partnerships that eventually have done their job and have contributed to a certain objective? And so we really today, I think that this informal Competitiveness Council was a little bit different from the ones that I've been, because it was about really concrete objectives and about how do we follow up not just on the ideas but on the concrete actions. And there again, the role of Minister Reps was really down to earth. Like, so what do we do next? And I think that was very good, because it was also a different way of creating the environment around the table to take decisions. And so I thank the presidents for that, and thank you all for being here in this amazing and beautiful building for the presidents. So thank you again, Mailis.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Minister. We will now move on to questions. Before asking the question, please introduce yourself and the media you represent, and also please indicate whether your question is addressed to the Minister, the Commissioner, or both. So do we have questions? Yes, Lauri, please.
Hi, my name is Lauri Tänkler with the Estonian daily newspaper Eesti Päevaleht and Delfi news portal. I have a question for Mr. Commissioner. I have a question about Pascal Lamy's report, and actually it does connect to the implications of Brexit. Now I know I understand that Brexit's on a separate track right now. It's practically impossible to get around it when discussing the future of European future. Lamy's report, LabFab app, suggested that basically no matter how the rest of the Brexit negotiations are going, that there is basically one no-brainer, which is that the UK should remain within the European research area. Mr. Commissioner, what would you say, is this a no-brainer, or what implications would it have when Britain would leave the European research area? Thank you.
Very good. It's a very good question in a very timely way. I think that the Lamy report puts a big emphasis on the fact that the program that we run of science and innovation has to be open to the world. And that has been always our motto: open innovation, open science, and openness to the world. And I think it's important that whatever is the state of the world, whatever are our partners and allies doing, there's one door that we always have to have open, which is the door of science and innovation. You know, probably one of the most impressive projects I've been is a project in the Middle East, a particle accelerator in Jordan, where you see people, scientists from Israel, scientists from Palestine, from Iran, from Egypt, all around the table talking science. And so that is a principle that I will always defend. The question you're asking is harder, because it's about an answer that I cannot give you today, which is that there'll be first a time to discuss with the United Kingdom about the divorce, quote unquote, and settle that divorce. And then there will be a time to discuss the future relationship with Europe, where science and innovation is part of it. But for the moment, it's impossible for me to speculate about what that future will be. But I think that the future have to be a relationship in between the UK and the European Union. We have to find a way of having that relationship. And I hope, but I'm not sure of what the future will be, that that relationship involves science and innovation, because it's good for the United Kingdom and it's good for Europe. It's a relationship that is important for the future of the world. But unfortunately, I cannot give you a straight answer on this one. But I think that we have to live with a decision that was taken, and we should respect the decision of the British people. But it's a decision that actually it's very sad, and it's kind of really a tragedy for all of us. But then we have to solve it, and we have to take it from there. But we don't know what will be the end of it, so let's see.
Thank you. Do we have more questions? Yes, Mario, please.
Thank you. Mario Himma from Public Broadcasting, and my question is to the Commissioner. And it is about the different instruments that have been proposed to decrease the number of the instruments and to reorganize it. Horizon 2020 is ending, and we have approximately 3 years to rearrange it. How possible is it?
Very good. I think that one of the things that we get from the conclusions of the interim evaluation is that we have to be more focused in terms of the way we looked at innovation. So we're doing everything right in terms of fundamental science, and in fundamental science you have an amazing brand called the European Research Council. Everybody recognizes that. I mean, people call it kind of the mini Nobel Prizes for great scientists. And actually some of them became Nobel Prizes, like André Geim or like Ben Feringa and Jean-Pierre Sauvage. But in the innovation side, it's much more fragmented. So there's not a common brand for innovation in Europe. We have great instruments, but people don't know about them. And so one of the things that I really would like to do, and I think that Minister Reps shared that with me, is that we want a vision to have a brand for innovation that we are calling today the European Innovation Council, a little bit as a mirror of the European Research Council in a very different way, but also is about getting that fragmentation into one umbrella. And then people will relate to it. And you will have a brand that you as a startupper, you get as a brand of Europe. You know, some of the people that I've met in recent times that are in the startup world, they tell me that even to raise funds in venture capital in other parts of the world, when they have a seal of excellence, when they have an SME instrument, which is one of our instruments, that helps them in the private sector to raise more funds. So if we could create that brand, I think that will be a great thing. So we are starting by a pilot phase now in these 3 years, and I hope that for FP9 we'll be able to continue. So that is extremely important to reduce the fragmentation of instruments in general, and we'll do it in 2 phases.
Thank you. We will have time for one more question. It seems that everything is clear. So thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Minister, for your very comprehensive answers. And thank you all for coming. This concludes our press conference.
Thank you.